Okay, let's dive in. Pigs.
Hmm.
We think of them maybe as farm animals, intelligent creatures, but have you ever stopped to think about where that relationship started?
Right. How did we get from wild boar to, well, bacon?
Exactly. How
Uh,
did that happen?
it's one of those really fundamental questions, isn't it? About our history, our connection with animals.
Yeah.
And today, we're taking a deep dive into the very, very beginnings of that story, specifically looking at early pig domestication in South China.
Okay.
We've got this fascinating new study just out in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, plus some related notes. That's our guide.
Right. So our mission then is to unpack what this new research tells us about the when, the where, and maybe the most interesting part, the how.
The how, yeah.
How humans and pigs first kicked off this complex journey towards domestication. We're talking way back, right? Like 8,000 years ago?
Around 8,000 years ago, yeah. In the Lower Yangtze region.
And finding those very first steps, that's always been tough for archaeologists, hasn't it?
Oh, incredibly challenging. Historically, I mean.
Yeah, I guess traditionally you'd look for physical changes, right? Like bones getting smaller, that kind of thing.
Exactly. That's the classic sign. You look for that reduction in size, maybe changes in the shape of bones or teeth compared to the wild
You
ancestors.
see that with dogs, cattle.
And pigs too, yeah. But the thing is, that reduction in size, it likely happens later in the process. It takes time for those physical changes to show up.
Okay, so that's the limitation if you're looking for the very beginning. The bones might not have changed much yet.
Precisely. The current thinking is that the first steps, they were probably more about behavior.
Behavior? How so?
Well, think about wild boars. Maybe some were just naturally less aggressive or more tolerant of humans being around.
So they'd hang around settlements more.
Yeah, maybe drawn in by food scraps or something.
Right.
But those traits being less fearful, more tolerant, they don't immediately leave a mark on the skeleton.
Right. You can't measure tolerance on a fossil bone.
Exactly. So just looking at bone size makes it really, really difficult to pinpoint that very first phase of interaction.
Okay, so if bone size doesn't show you the earliest signs, how do you find evidence of that behavioral shift, that initial closeness?
That's where this new study is, well, pretty ingenious. They looked inside the mouth.
Inside the mouth. You mean like checking their teeth for cavities?
Not quite. They use microfossil analysis of pig dental calculus.
Dental calculus. Okay, that's like the hardened plaque on teeth.
Exactly that. That mineralized gunk that builds up over an animal's lifetime.
And why is that useful? What's plaque got to tell us?
Oh, it's amazing what gets trapped in there. As the plaque forms and hardens, it catches tiny, tiny particles of everything going through the mouth.
Like what?
Food fragments, bits of plants, pollen, even things like parasite eggs. Once it mineralizes, it basically seals them in.
It's like a little time capsule right there on the tooth.
Micromuseum, yeah. It's a direct record of diet-environment interaction.
Wow, okay.
And they applied this technique to pig teeth from two really key early Neolithic sites in the Lower Yangtze, Jingtoushan and Kuahuqiao.
And these are important because...
Because they represent some of the earliest settled human communities we know of in that region. We're talking dates like 8,300 back to about 7,000 years ago.
And I heard something about preservation at these sites being unusually good.
Yes, that was crucial. They were waterlogged sites, which is fantastic for preserving organic stuff that usually just decays away. That's why they could even analyze these microscopic traces in the calculus.
Makes sense. And they didn't just look at one or two teeth, did they?
No. They analyzed calculus from 32 different pig specimens.
32. That sounds like a decent sample size for this kind of super detailed work.
It really is. And what they found inside those 32 sets of pig teeth,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's pretty compelling stuff.
Okay, lay it on us. What did the micromuseums reveal? What was trapped in the plaque?
All right, so first up, starch granules, lots of them. They found 240 in total across the samples.
Starch. Okay, so definitely eating plants.
Yep. And they could even identify some of the plant types, things you'd expect, maybe like acorns, wild grasses, but also underground roots or tubers, something like yams perhaps, and rice.
Rice. In pig teeth from 8,000 years ago.
Rice, or Rhodizia species starch.
Yeah.
Which is really significant because, well, what were people doing at these sites?
They were early farmers, right? Growing rice.
Exactly. Particularly at Kuahuqiao, there's evidence for pretty intensive rice cultivation. So the plants showing up in the pig's teeth, they match what's in the local environment and, crucially, what the humans are known to be using, growing, gathering.
Okay, so the pigs are eating plants found around the human settlements. That definitely suggests they're nearby. hanging around.
He points to proximity, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the bit that, as you said earlier, kind of blows you away.
Go on.
Some of that starch, it was cooked.
Cooked starch in the pig plaque.
Yeah. They found evidence of gelatinized starch granules. That happens when you heat starchy foods. And they specifically identified this cooked starch from the rice, the yam-like plants, and another unidentified tuber.
Okay. Hang on. Pigs don't cook?
Pigs do not, as far as we know, build fires and boil rice, no.
Huh. Right. So the only way they're getting cooked food
Is from humans.
either being directly fed scraps, maybe, or
Scavenging.
Well, yeah.
Rooting through the settlement's garbage, eating leftover cooked food waste.
either scenario paints a picture of pigs living really, really close to people, like right there, interacting daily.
A much, much closer relationship than just, being hunted out in the woods occasionally.
Definitely. But there was more, wasn't there? Even more direct evidence of this closeness.
There was, and this is maybe the slightly less appetizing part.
Parasites.
Parasites. They specifically looked for parasite eggs that might be preserved in the calculus, and they found them.
What kind?
Human wickworm eggs. Trichuris trichiora.
Human whipworm. Okay, so that's a parasite that specifically, its life cycle involves the human gut.
Precisely. It matures in human digestive systems.
Yes.
Its eggs are passed out in human feces.
And they found these human parasite eggs in the pig teeth.
In 16 of the 32 pig specimens they analyzed.
Half of them. 16 pig mouths had evidence of human intestinal parasites.
Wow. It's a really powerful signal, isn't it, for whipworm eggs to get into a pig's mouth?
They have to be ingesting human waste.
Directly, yes. Or eating food or drinking water that's been contaminated with human feces.
Okay, but pigs, I mean, they're known for being scavengers, right? They'll eat pretty much anything, including waste.
They are notorious for it, yes. So finding these eggs, it's not entirely surprising in that sense, but it's very strong confirmation. It shows a very, very close and, maybe a somewhat messy co-living situation right there in the human settlements.
It really moves beyond just inferring things from bone size. This is direct evidence of behavior, of interaction.
Exactly, what they were actually doing.
And this kind of evidence, the cooked food, the parasites, it seems to speak really strongly to one of the main ideas about how domestication gets started.
It definitely does. There are sort of two main models or pathways people talk about.
Okay.
One is the prey pathway. It's kind of the more active one from the human side. Humans initially hunt an animal, but then start to manage them more directly.
Like controlling herds, maybe selective breeding early on.
Yeah, keeping them penned,
Yeah.
choosing which ones to breed, actively taking charge, like you said.
Right. And the other one?
The other is the commensal pathway. Commensal means like sharing the table. Animals are drawn to human settlements, not necessarily managed at first, but attracted by new resources.
Resources like garbage.
Like garbage, yeah. Food scraps, waste. Think about animals that just become comfortable living near people because, hey, free food, easy living.
And I suppose settled human communities, especially early farming villages, would produce way more concentrated waste than, say, mobile hunter-gatherers.
Absolutely. A permanent village, especially one with agriculture, it's like an open buffet for a wild scavenger, like a boar.
And the ones that aren't scared off easily would do best.
Right. Natural selection would favor the bolder ones, the ones more tolerant of human presence. So this dental calculus evidence, the cooked food, the human whipworm, it fits perfectly with that commensal pathway. Pigs were clearly scavenging, living right alongside people, eating their waste.
Strong support for the commensal idea, but the study also found something else, didn't it? Something pointing towards the other pathway maybe happening too.
It did. That's what makes it really interesting. Alongside the microfossil stuff, they also did the more traditional dental metrics, measuring the teeth.
Oh, wait, looking at size again.
Yep. And their statistical analysis showed something intriguing. Some of the pigs from these very early sites, their teeth were already slightly smaller than typical wild boars.
Smaller, even back then.
Yeah, statistically smaller.
Yeah.
And closer in size to pig populations from later periods that we know are domestic.
Huh. So, let me get this straight. Around 8,000 years ago, at the same sites, you've got evidence of pigs acting like commensals scavenging human waste. And D, you've got some pigs already showing subtle physical changes, the smaller teeth, that hint at that more managed prey pathway type of domestication.
That seems to be the picture emerging, yeah. Domestication probably wasn't just one thing or the other.
Not an either situation.
Likely not. It was probably this complex mix, happening along both tracks at the same time, maybe even interacting. You have wild boars drawn in by the easy pickings of settled life.
The commensal route.
And at the same time, perhaps humans are starting to actively manage or select certain individuals, maybe the less aggressive ones, maybe ones that were naturally a bit smaller, easier to handle.
The prey route kicking in, too.
Exactly. So it wasn't like flipping a switch from wild to domestic. It looks like a much more gradual, multifaceted process happening on different fronts simultaneously.
That makes sense. More realistic somehow.
And it all fits so well within the bigger picture of what's happening in the Lower Yangtze region right at that time.
Which was this massive shift, right? People settling down, really getting into rice farming.
A huge transition period.
Yeah.
Development of sedentary life, intensive agriculture. It highlights how those changes in human society didn't just affect humans.
Yeah.
They fundamentally altered the environment.
Creating new opportunities for animals.
Created new niches, new resources, new pressures, basically setting the stage for these domestication processes to happen. And actually, that unexpected finding about the whipworm.
Ah, yeah, the parasite eggs again.
That connects this whole story to an even broader consequence of people settling down with animals.
Because finding those eggs was a big deal in itself, wasn't it? Beyond just showing pigs ate waste.
It really was. Turns out, those human whipworm eggs, found in pig teeth from 8,000 years ago. That's the earliest archaeological evidence we currently have for human whipworm in all of East Asia.
Wow. So these first farming villages weren't just the cradles of domestication.
They were also becoming hotspots for, well, for humans and animals sharing diseases.
Zoonotic diseases, the ones that jump between species.
Exactly. This finding kind of opens up a whole fascinating line of inquiry, doesn't it, about the deep history of that relationship. Early animal domestication, settled human life, and the transmission of pathogens. It suggests this close, sometimes unhealthy interaction started right back at the dawn of agriculture.
So stepping back then, this study is pretty remarkable. It gives us this incredibly early, direct look at pig domestication happening in the Lower Yangtze.
Around 8,000 years ago.
And it does it using this, frankly, brilliant technique, looking inside the dental calculus.
Yeah, it lets you see the behavior, what the animals were actually eating, who they were interacting with, even before their bones really started to change significantly.
Showing us pigs eating human leftovers, cooked food, even human waste.
Yeah.
Which points to this incredibly close relationship, probably involving both that scavenging commensal pathway.
And also, likely, some level of active human management starting up too, the prey pathway elements.
A really complex beginning to a relationship that, it completely changed human history, and pig history too, obviously.
Absolutely fundamentally reshaped landscapes and societies.
Okay, so here's maybe something for you, the listener, to ponder. The story we usually tell about domestication, maybe focusing on size or human control, it might be too simple.
Yeah.
This research shows the journey from wild boar to domestic pig wasn't just neat and tidy. It was, well, messier, more intimate. It involved sharing food, sharing living space, and yes, even sharing parasites.
Right from the start.
So think about that. This messy, close beginning highlights that the very foundation of our relationship with the animals we depend on wasn't straightforward. What might that messy start, going back 8,000 years, suggest about the ongoing, complex, and sometimes dangerous dance between humans, domestic animals, and the potential for diseases to emerge and spread right up to the present day?